Today's guest has been a part of her family business literally since day one. 40 years in, Knight Archer Insurance here in Saskatchewan opened their first location 40 years ago. They're celebrating this year, and it's a big year for them. The president and CEO, Tracy Archer, Tracy, has of course been in that family business right from the very beginning. And she's got a really good perspective on leadership, finding balance for family. And as a single mom, she needs to make time for kids just to make sure that everything stays in check. Welcome, Tracy. So pleased to have you here.
Thanks, Barb.
So tell me a little bit about some of those early days. What spurred the creation of the business 40 years ago?
You know, the business actually began with my mom and my uncle. So her brother began the business, and my father was also there more in a supporting role. And as he had his full-time job, so he wasn't the one actually in the business full-time doing all of the work. So we actually started in our basement of our house.
Oh, wow. Home-based business. There we go.
That's right. So directly in our basement. And within 6 months, we actually moved into our location that we're in still right now on Victoria Avenue East.
Wow. So that was the original.
For 40 years. Absolutely.
Any idea how many renovations you've gone through?
No, I don't. You know, we've been in different spots, all within kind of the same area, and then we've just expanded, right? And over the years, we now have the main level as well as the upstairs level, all for Knight Archer, and you know, just adjusted as we've grown. So it's been great.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be neat to put up one of those pictures in the office that show, you know, kind of the office over the years? Track down some pictures, because I'm sure your mom and dad or uncle kept them over the years, and that would be very interesting.
We have some really nice scrapbooks, actually, of all of, you know, a couple different years, different people that we've had, and, you know, and some of our growth, opening different offices. And it's great to go back and look at some of those things. I really appreciate the history.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started in the basement of your house. How many locations do you have now?
Currently, we have 17 locations. So we have 14 locations in Saskatchewan, 2 in Manitoba, and 1 in Alberta. Okay.
And how do you find being out of the province? Is the insurance landscape quite a bit different outside the borders, or is it pretty similar?
You know, there are differences. Certainly, Saskatchewan and Manitoba are quite similar because they both have government auto insurance. So both SGI and MPI in Manitoba are quite similar in their approach. But certainly when we go into Alberta, where they do not have that government auto, it makes a big difference on how we approach insurance. Also, the landscape and business is a little bit different in Alberta than it is in Saskatchewan and Manitoba.
Yeah, and that sounds like almost any other time we compare the provinces. There's always those unique nuances, right?
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. So are you an only child? Is that why you ended up heading up the family business, or?
I'm not. I'm actually the youngest of 3.
Oh.
So I have an older brother, older sister.
Okay.
And my brother has worked in the business now for about 24 years. He has been a part of the business. And James actually took the route of working a little bit more on our mortgage side of the business. And he moved into the corporate side of the business, but he's also had a couple other interests that he's been pursuing. So, you know, he wants to kind of go on his own path on doing a few things. And so he stepped back a little bit more from a leadership role within the business. And my sister worked a couple years in university, but really since then she has done her own thing, moved to Montreal, kind of set up shop there with her family and everything. And just recently in December, she actually moved back to Regina. But her husband works for us, and he's been working for us for about 3 years, worked remotely from Montreal. And we've been able to make that work and find a position that he can do remotely. So he was our first remote worker before everything else happened. So it's been
Yeah,
great.
so you got to test it a little bit. You know, that's interesting because I often wonder that about family businesses when they're siblings. And, you know, how does that all sort out, or does it usually sort itself out? Because I can't imagine that the tension or the dynamic that it would create when you've got two siblings, you kind of both gearing to head up a company.
Yeah.
So when you started, you talked about your mom and your uncle. Was there kids on his side as well that were active in the business?
No, there hasn't been, but there are five. My mom has 5 kids in her family, so 4 siblings. All of them have worked in the business, as well as we have had probably, I want to say, at least 6 or 7 of my cousins, some aunts and uncles from either side. So it's truly been a really big family endeavor, not just my own family in terms of my parents, but the whole family has been a part of it. And, recently, just this past year, actually, my sister and brother, they have come onto our board of directors.
Okay.
So, they've now kind of taken the position of directing me and being my boss.
I was gonna say, yeah. Remember, you're the youngest, so like they've had years of practice bossing you around.
That's right. So I may be the one here that is president and CEO, but at the end of the day, I still report into my brother and sister on our board of directors. So
Yeah. And your dad and your mom, were they on the board as well?
my dad is still on our board of directors, and my mom was able to really take a step back. She retired in 2016, so 5 years ago now. And you know what? All of her time is really devoted to her grandkids.
Yeah.
She spends a ton of time with the kids, and has really embraced being grandma, and is happy to be able to take a step back from insurance, which she did for 35 years, and said, I'm good. I don't need to be doing that work anymore, and have lots of fulfillment from spending time with the kids. So
Exactly. No, and isn't that what we all strive for, is to work and get to that place in life where we've got time to, spend more time with family and do things like that. So as the CEO of the corporation, you're one of not nearly enough female CEOs. Does that feel like a burden? I'm sorry, no, burden has a negative connotation, but does that feel like a responsibility to you? Or, what does that feel like?
I think I'm very lucky that I grew up both in a household that is very balanced, and my parents always each had their own careers, but also really balanced our family life, and there was no strict roles or anything within the family. And I also grew up in the business where, for the majority of the time, my mom was president of Knight Archer Insurance.
Okay.
So when my dad came back into the business in 2001, my mom continued in her role until 2016 when she retired. So
okay.
It wasn't until the last couple of years that my dad actually moved into the role as president and CEO. So, and then he retired 2 years ago. So,
and then you went into the, so that's very interesting. I didn't know that, of course, because your dad was so well known in the community. Yes. I just assumed that he was, back at the helm kind of thing. Yeah. So talk about those leadership principles then that you learned from your mom, especially because she was a female CEO at a time where that was very uncommon.
Very much so. So she, my parents have always been very involved in the community, and that it's always been very important to them to be able to give back to the community. So we have always had, I think, a lot of strength in terms of balance of women in the office as well as men, and understanding the need to diversify, not only in terms of gender, but also in terms of ethnicity, in terms of age, all of those things. And my mom really put that at the forefront of something that meant a lot to her. And she took a lot of time to get involved in things. So, she was a part of the Insurance Brokers of Saskatchewan. She was on their board of directors for I think about 7 or 8 years. She also led the Insurance Women's Association of Saskatchewan and participated on the board for the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada.
Okay.
So she really took, a leading role within the industry for a number of years. And I believe she was only the third woman to be president, to be chair of the Insurance Brokers Association of Saskatchewan. So she has been a leader in everything she's done. So I think I take it for granted a little bit that, that it can be done. And it's just, it's been normalized for me that there's no differences in terms of anything I can achieve versus anyone else.
Exactly. Now, one of the differences, though, is your mom had your dad for support, and you're a single mom. So how are you balancing it all?
It certainly does make a change in our life, and it has required that I step back a little bit more from some of the community activities that I have enjoyed earlier on, certainly in my life. And really focus. The most important thing in my life is my children, and in really getting to that point, I think as a parent, you get to realize what are the things that matter to you. And for me, it was first and foremost making sure that I'm there for my children. I love my work, and I do it always to the best of my ability. But my children are number one. And so everything I do, I want to make sure that they know that I'm there for them, and, and that they have that support. So I'm very lucky that my mom does a lot of support for me. So she really enjoys spending that time with my kids. And, she's there every day after school. She's the one picking them up from school and, taking them to their activities, allowing me to, to continue work kind of till 5 or 6, and then picking them up at the end of the day, and usually being able to join them at the end and pick them up, maybe see a little bit of their sports. But, it is a lot of balance. So
well, and you're very fortunate to have that built-in support system, right? It's almost like grandma nanny kind of thing, or nanny grandma. Like, that's awesome, right?
Absolutely.
So are you good at turning it off? So the girls go to bed, whatever time it is, 8, 9 o'clock. Are you good for turning it off, or do you find yourself logging back in, checking some email? What's your habit?
So I like to think I'm good at it, but I also know that certainly my staff or anyone, clients, they can reach me at any time. So I do all of my work off of my cell phone just about, and I guess constantly connected in that part. But I do make a concerted effort that, when I'm at work, that's my work time. I want to really focus on doing that well. And when I get home, I want to be mom, and I want to do that well. So, but at the same time, having that understanding that, sometimes mom's going to have to do some work, and that's my responsibility. So, there's balance. Sometimes I may need 5 minutes, I may need a half hour, but, I'm going to come back and do all those things I need to. So I don't feel the need to work after hours, but it's just always having that availability and people knowing that they can reach out if need be.
Exactly. So talk about how you build your team at the office so that you feel like you have that support system where, you can walk away at 5 and 6 o'clock and have the confidence to know that those who, might be there when the stores open late, or if something does come up as an emergency. Talk about that for me if you can.
We have worked really hard over the last, I would say about 5 or 6 years, since 2015, really, when we started to grow a little bit more within the province. We worked hard to be able to build that leadership team and really transition from it being our family leading the business to having a team that's leading the business. And so although we have certainly a family focus that still continues, whether that's from the board perspective or myself in my position, I rely heavily on my team, and they're fantastic. I really enjoy working with everyone that I have within our leadership team. And we've also focused to make sure that we have a lot of different levels that can support our team. We're open 8 till 8 Monday to Friday, 9 to 6 Saturday, 12 to 4 Sunday. So and that's across the province. So it is important that our staff are able to have that supervisor that they can reach out to, whoever that may be. So we do have branch managers in each location that are really taking a hold and responsible for that area, and then also the support above them. So it does allow me a lot of ability to step back, also to engage in different industry activities. So I am currently working on a lot of different boards of directors within the industry, participating in different focus groups within different insurance companies. And I'm okay to be able to take that time to devote to the industry, devote to our connections there, build those relationships, and know that everything is still working here at the office and that we have that support here.
Exactly. Well, and if you think back to those early days when there was a single location on Victoria Avenue, your mom being the president or whomever was at that time, they were probably still actively working with clients, selling insurance. Plus they were, that president and CEO plus, where you guys have matured as a business now. And, you're able to truly be that leader that sets the tone, because if you were still, actively pursuing business or actively working with clients, you're not going to be able to have that same kind of balance and, be on the boards and things like that. If I recall correctly, you're on the board with the Insurance Association here in Saskatchewan. And is it Canada as well? You just said
yes, I've actually just come off of the one in Canada, but on these boards, as well as I'm currently chair of our Issuer Advisory Committee. So that's the SGI part in terms of selling our plate insurance and driver's licenses. So working on a couple of those things is it's just really important to me. I love engaging with our peers across the industry, different leaders, and learning from them. It's so invaluable to be able to learn from your peers on what they're doing, what works for them. Also different understandings of business. We have a very good spread in terms of rural locations as well as urban locations.
Okay.
But I've lived in Regina my whole life, and I may not have the same perspective of small town as certainly a lot of other brokers across Saskatchewan. So really getting to understand their perspective, I think, helps me in leading the whole company in being able to say, these are some of the things that we need to focus on in these small towns. These are some of the understandings we need to have, because I may not come with that perspective myself.
Well, and even something like agriculture. I mean, agriculture policies, I would presume, aren't a huge thing here in Regina. But as soon as you head out into the rural areas, then it's a totally different thing, right?
Absolutely. Our office in Humboldt, we have 4 offices in that area, and they are very focused on our agriculture sector. Same when you go to Yorkton, as well as we have 3 smaller offices in Craven, Lumsden, and Pence. And, it's really, as soon as you get out of those city limits, the agriculture sector in Saskatchewan is very booming. It's very exciting and ever changing, right? They're really moving into being true businesses, and moving away from some of those smaller family farms. So it's exciting to see the changes and the growth within agriculture too.
Absolutely. And even the use of technology on the farm, where it used to be, technology was just not a thing. And now everything from the tractors to the amount of internet use that they need to be able to really do the job, so to speak, right? Leadership is a very difficult thing for anyone. Do you find that you have, I'll say, core principles or core values around how you lead, or is it just inherent and it's what you've always learned and lived and you continue that now as the company CEO?
That's a good question. I look back that my core values, and we've actually done a lot of exercises in the past 2 years at our strategic planning and annual business planning, that really trying to engage with each of our members of our leadership team to talk about what our core values are. And for me, my core values are first and foremost independence and freedom. And those are things that I think I hold very dear.
Mhm.
And some of that comes, I think, from also a sporting background. I competed in a individual sport,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you also rely on your team.
Yes.
So regardless if you are the one competing directly for yourself at that point in time, you have the team support. You have the team training with you every day and pushing you to be better, and also supporting your teammates and pushing them to be better. So I
Mhm.
think that really helps me in my role right now in being able to lead and be independent and have that freedom, but also relying on my team and know that they are here for my success. I'm here as part of their success,
Yeah.
and we have to work together in order to both achieve what we want.
Isn't it interesting that those basic principles that we learn as a kid about being on a team, supporting a team, showing up for a team are sometimes the most important principles going forward,
Absolutely. It's,
right?
it really is remarkable how much, those beliefs and everything that I was taught through sport has really played out in my life. And
Yeah.
I think it is so essential for kids to get involved, and whether that's sports, arts, whatever it is, but to be involved in something that is bigger than themselves, and to
Yes.
understand how you play a role in the bigger whole, how you can contribute, and how you can take away from other people and learn from them to make
Yes.
yourself better.
Exactly. It's so interesting because as a parent and as a parent of kids who were in sports and activities, something that we've always reinforced with the kids, like once you sign up, once you're committed, like you show up. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like showing up, it doesn't matter if you're tired.
Mhm.
If you're sick, okay, we'll take an exception. And I quickly discovered that not every parent has that same philosophy. So without getting into a judging conversation, we're pretty insistent with our kids that if you've signed up, like you're committing. And I don't care if you decide you don't want to do it next year, but this year, you're in, right? And I think that just instills something huge in kids at such a young age, right? It's like mom and dad said I had to show up. Mom and dad said I had to show up. Mom and dad said I had to be on time. Mom and dad said I had to be on time. And for so many kids, it's like, whatever. Yeah, I'll show up for 2 games this season and not the rest. So again, without judging, I think that for those who have been involved in sport, we tend to pass it on to our kids. And
Mhm.
then, if you weren't involved in sport, or maybe it wasn't something you enjoyed, then there's different lessons that you're teaching your kids, right? So nothing has given me wider eyes than parenting in terms of how different we all really are.
Yes.
Right? It's shocking, absolutely shocking.
Yes, my oldest daughter has taught me a lot in terms of patience first and foremost, right? And I think all children teach their parents how to be more patient. But also her way of thinking is, I would almost say, completely different from mine, and it really makes me take a step back and say, okay, we're not seeing this the same way.
Mhm.
I need to take a step back and understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to relate and understand that my way is not the right way.
Mhm.
That, there's just different perspectives in how we approach things. And I think it's allowed me to be better in everything I do by
Mhm.
just applying those same principles, that,
Yeah.
it's not a right or wrong or anything like that. It's just that people do things differently. They approach different situations. And Jasmine has been fantastic at teaching me those things, whereas my youngest is a lot more like me. So it's a lot easier for us to understand each other. But my oldest is certainly
There we
very
go.
artistic. She comes from that artistic background, from creativity,
Yeah.
where I may be a little bit more of a linear thinker.
Mhm. And it's their thinking process. The one that I've really picked up on is the communication process. So, having had a sport background and a business background, how we communicate information is one way. But yes, when you have that artistic flair, or your brain just works different, you communicate different. And so we have to really watch when we're talking, especially with our daughter as well, that we have to make sure that we understand what she's trying to tell us, because otherwise our go-to is, well, no, that's not the truth. But really, she just communicates it so much differently than we do. And it's not that she's trying to lie to us. She's just telling us what she thinks we need to know, when of course we want to know more. So yes, it makes it interesting. Anyway, we are basically at a time. So please tell everyone how they can find you and find Knight Archer and what they would find you for.
Absolutely. So we are certainly located on all your social channels that you can come visit us, but also take a look at our website. We do have chat available. We have a lot of self-available items in terms of being able to purchase insurance and quoting there. And you can take a look at all of our locations that you can come into. So we are right across Saskatchewan, our province here, and it's very important to us that we are reaching out to all of our customers. So I really love that engagement aspect, and we have changed where we try to look at things to be a client experience rather than just service. And that's the engagement part that we really look for from our clients. So get in touch with us anytime.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. So thank you very much for being with me here today. It was a pleasure to talk to you and just kind of understand how leadership works in a family business that has grown rapidly and demonstrated some amazing success. So thank you for being here.
Thanks very much.
If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at barb@googlegirl.ca or reach out on Facebook and Instagram at AboveTheFoldCA. Just a reminder, you can even submit questions in advance of our live shows on our Facebook page. I'm your host, Barb McGrath, local business owner and Google Girl. Remember, you worked hard for your success. Don't keep it a secret. Bye for now.